Commissioner Harrington?
Here.
Commissioner Lesniak?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Wade?
Here.
Chairperson Crock?
Here.
Just to note, everybody's present this evening.
Okay. Orders of the day.
It's all in order. Well, as you all should have received an amended agenda, the Vineland project unfortunately didn't get story poles up, and they're going to go to the January 9th meeting. So if you could hold on to that.
Okay.
That'll save paper, and I'll just, if anything else is in the packet, just deliver the other items. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, on to public comment. If anyone in the gallery has anything to talk about that is not on the agenda today, you can come up and have the microphone for 3 minutes. Okay, there are no public comments. Done with public comments. Approval of the minutes. I did notice that at the end of the minutes, it talked about the adjournment and going to November 7th instead
Oh,
of...
sorry.
So it just shows you I'm actually reading that.
Well done, yes.
I do that every
Exceptional-
once in a while just to
exceptional
make
You
sure.
you put that in just to make sure, right? So I don't remember
Okay.
exactly what time we adjourned, but it was short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did notice that too. I'm like,
I
wow.
don't
Have
really
to go
care. I
back
just
and-
thought I would show that I was actually reading the minutes.
I'll modify that.
Okay,
I can go back to the recording. So.
okay. We have one public hearing tonight, which is 18792
Oh,
Whitney
do you,
Road.
you still have to
Oh, do we approve the minutes
approve the
as
minutes
amended?
as amended? So,
Approve the minutes as amended?
We have to make a motion first. I motion that we approve the minutes as proposed to be amended.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. On to the public hearing. Just one on 18792 Whitney Road. Jeannie, will you take the floor?
thank you. So the project before you is a demolition of an existing approximately 2,100 square foot home and the construction of an approximate 5,900 square foot two-story home stepping down the hill, as well as the proposed structure has an attached two-car garage, but they also propose a detached two-car accessory garage. And as part of this, they're also proposing to remove, and the applicant can clarify some information, but approximately 3 to 4 oak trees back near that proposed detached garage, as well as the 2 large eucalyptus that are at the base of the property near the driveway. So those are included as part of it. The proposal as designed, with one exception, which I'll point out because it was my error in not catching it earlier, meets all the required setbacks and height. The one item on your plans, and I've already discussed it with the applicant, is there's a balcony at the rear of the building which extends onto the roof of the attached garage. That can't be in that 30 to 40 foot area, so they'll have to, the access will be restricted, and the finish on top of that roof will be roofing material not suitable for people to go onto. They can only have outdoor patio or balcony area at that level, 40 feet and beyond from the rear property line. There has been some discussion related to the water lines and water pressure. Unfortunately, the water pressure issue is really to be dealt with through the water company and/or fire service to make sure that there's adequate water pressure on the site to supply either sprinklers or hydrant or firefighting purposes, as well as just the residential needs. There is an existing easement which crosses San Jose Water Company, which crosses the property currently diagonally. That is being amended. so that it won't conflict with any of the proposed improvements on there. Up in the upper corner near where the detached garage is being proposed, there is a series of water meters which serves, and I don't know exactly how many, but 3 to 5 properties that are off-site. So there, whether those are there via an easement or just because that's how it was done way back when, it's clear that those are serving adjacent properties. And, should that detached garage be approved, prior to any permitting of that, we'd need definitive identification of where those private water lines run. And if there are any conflicts, they'll need to be relocated at the expense of the property owner and in coordination with the other property owners who they serve. I haven't been able to get access to any easement language that the adjacent property owners may have. I've suggested that they might have it. These easements may not exist. It just might be the way the water lines were laid out when the properties were developed, and they're prescriptive in nature, but can be easily relocated if need be. So I think that's all I really have. I'm available for any questions. And I do know that I emailed 2 sets of correspondence that I received from adjacent neighbors, one on Monday and one it was yesterday or today. Today.
Today?
Yeah, today. And so hopefully you've been able to look at that, and I do know that both of those parties are here to speak on the project.
I have a question. When you say that, do you mean that the water lines could be easily moved if they're
The
in the wrong-
individual, not the San Jose Water, that's San Jose Water Company's responsibility, but the relocation of it's like your water line from wherever the meter is, if they can. Again, it's still an unknown, so we'll have to figure that out. Alternatively, there's too much that's unknown right now,
So I guess my bottom line question is, before we go down a rabbit hole of water line movement, is that out of our jurisdiction? Do we
those
just not,
things-
that's not
that
in
issue
our-
isn't necessarily, because again, I'm going to go under an assumption that there's some sort of easement, be it defined or prescriptive or whatever, for those private serving water lines from the meters to the homes, adjacent homes. And if they're proposing a structure over them, they either need to move that structure or they need to propose a relocation of those lines that, in working with the adjacent property owners. Again, it's those adjacent property owners that should have some sort of easement over there. So to the extent that the private property owner has the ability to alter them without any damage to the adjacent neighbor's use of that utility, typically that's available to that private property owner.
So would any ruling that we make be subject to?
I would recommend that there be a condition related to
Okay, so anything that we do is going to be
those
conditional
private
on-
serving water utility lines, because nobody, neither the applicant nor the adjacent property owners, have been able to provide me easement language or maps that show where those actual lines are. Again, they may be at a time, or the language may be somewhere, and then it's in, standard meets and bounds, which we would have a hard time really locating. So somebody either needs to find that now, or it's going to be the applicant's responsibility if they want to put a structure there. They need to prove that there are no water lines, or there's a sufficient distance from water lines, because there's clearly the meters there. You can see those on the grading and drainage plan. So so there's no doubt that there's that situation. But we would condition on the applicant that they remedy that prior to us permitting that structure. It wouldn't necessarily hold up the larger project should it be approved, because that's parking that's above and beyond what they'd otherwise be required, because they're providing that in an attached garage.
Jeannie, I have another question. In reference to one of the communications that we received from one of the neighbors, there's reference to a private road. First, I'd like, if you're capable of confirming that there is some private road that's, and whether there's any road agreement that's shared amongst the various residents serviced by that road.
Yeah, and one of the residents is here to speak on that also, but my understanding is that there may be a couple of private, either easements over somebody else's property as a private road and or drive, and then subsequent, and it's been recently paved, and the property owner who managed that whole process is here to speak to that.
Okay, great. We can ask questions, Ben. Great. Thank you.
One last thing. I believe I heard you say that the water pressure issue is not one that we talk about. That's something
That's not in the hands of the city to it's not in our purview.
Okay.
And it will be dealt with through the utility hookup and also, if there's additional needs for fire purposes, because this will definitely be a sprinkler building and stuff like that. So that'll be dealt with through the appropriate agencies.
If there are no more questions for Jeannie, I will move on to the public hearing. If there's, do I read it, or do I just say who wants to talk about it?
First, you ask the applicant up to
Yes.
talk about
There
it.
is someone who would like to talk about 18792 Withee Road. State your name and tell us about the project.
Good evening. I'm Gary Colsett. I'm the architect of the project. I'm here representing Dan Kalmanson and Shannon Voss. They are both out of town and cannot be here at the meeting, and we have full authority to act on their behalf. I also have with me my assistant, Jackie Greenmeyer, and the landscape architect, David Fox, and our civil engineer, Amanda Musset-Verdell. Something like that. It's a French name. So. It used to be Amanda Wilson, so it was much easier. Thank you for listening to us on this project. It's an interesting site. When we first looked at the property with my clients, the first thing we noticed was the view. It was awesome, great view when you get up to the top where the existing home is, and it's a reason why that home was placed there, because it's a great view. And another reason why the property cost what it did, because of the view. But there was one glaring issue on the property. There was a water easement that ran diagonally, bisecting the property. And we noticed this because the previous owner had plans to develop this property. And he took it pretty far, but I guess he never really made a formal submittal, or he never took it to the Site and Architecture Committee, because there was no true file on the property. But we had plans. And he actually said the water line was going to be relocated. So we got into this with the sellers and the buyers and the agents and everything, and they talked to San Jose Water, and they said, yeah, we can relocate this. And they are 2 8-inch diameter water mains that supply water from up on, you might know better, but I think it's up on Overlook Road. There's 2 large water tanks that you can see, and they supply down to the valley. So we realized that this was a pretty major water line cutting right through our property, and we were hesitant, but the seller was committed to paying a good share of this to move it. So we were in contact with San Jose Water, and sure, they were able to do that. So we are still pending the relocation of these water lines and the easements going through, but it's obviously this approval would be pending that, because otherwise we can't build the home where we have it. But everything is all on the up and up. And there seems to be no indication why we can't do this. So that allowed us to put the house where we wanted to put it, which is up at the top of the hill. We have a driveway that's in a very similar location that it's in. The house is in a very similar location as the existing home. We've actually lowered the elevation by about 2.5, 3 feet to make the grading a little bit better. It's a steep driveway, and newer standards don't allow us for 20% grade. They want 15% grade. So we've done that. We have a turnaround. We have a garage that's attached, and we have also a turnaround up there for the residents with a detached accessory 2-car garage. So normally we would try to put a 3-car garage on a house, but it just wasn't possible in this situation, so we added 2 to the side. The water meters, there are 4 water meters on the property, and they're located adjacent to our little parking space that we have next to this detached 2-car garage. You can see them if you have a magnifying glass. And we are unaware of any particular easements, as Jeannie had mentioned, private easements. There's a public easement that has the water main, but no private easements that lead to these other properties. However, I've been on other projects where we've encountered water, gas lines, electric lines where there's no easements, and we deal with them. Here, at least we have an idea that there's water lines, and we'll locate them before we do anything. That's all going to be part of what we do in our next phase. So we can assure that all the neighbors will be, they may be inconvenienced for a short time, but it's just a matter of reconnecting at that time before we before we knock off their existing pipes. I'm sure you would understand that. So we think that that's taken care of. I actually do have a letter, a response from San Jose Water. I contacted them today. He's our contact person. I asked them about the water pressure because some of the neighbors have concerns that this home is going to sap more water from the line and actually decrease what their pressure is now. He assures me it will not. He said it's gravity fed, and I can read the letter to you, but I'd rather use my time for other reasons. But we can come back to that if you want, and I can share that with the neighbors. The house itself is this contemporary style, which helps us fit it into the land better. It's got flat roofs. We're cognizant of the home that's behind the property that has this wonderful view as well. We don't really want to block that view. And if you see the story poles, I'm assuming everybody made it to the site. Yeah. You can see how they're lower than the existing house part of it. So we've made a conscious effort to keep the height of this house down. And we don't have exact survey numbers, but we've done a lot of reconnaissance, and we feel that the main floor, finished floor of the neighbor above us is pretty much equal to our upper floor roof. So if someone is in that house, they should be able to see right over our property. I haven't been up to their home to see it with the story poles in place, but that's just what our math tells us. And everybody can have their own truth or whatever, but we feel that we're not blocking anybody's view. We've been trying to be respectful for that as well. As far as the private road, we deal with this on a pretty consistent basis these days. A lot of these projects that I deal with are accessed by shared roads. Pretty much when you leave Withy Road proper, you go up to a nicely paved road that serves 3 or 4 homes, and then it starts to split off. And ours, I think our branch hits 2 or 3 homes. What we do every time is we photo document, video document the existing conditions before we start, from start to our property, and we give that record to the engineering department in the city. So they have a record of that, and we will repair to at least existing standards, but almost always we do it above, and we do pretty much a new road because my clients want a new road as well. And so it'll be taken care of. The road is in pretty bad shape once you get up about halfway up. There's potholes and stuff like that. So we will probably have to be widening the road a little bit as well due to fire requirements these days. So we would anticipate pretty much regrading and repaving a good portion of this private road. So that's a standard protocol for us when we deal with these kind of projects. As far as the oak trees, there's one tree that's in the way of the garage exactly, and then there's a couple of trees that have to be come out because we have a man door that gets into the side of the garage, so we have a retaining wall that cuts into that tree. Our arborist has identified these trees as being fair trees. They're small oak trees. There's one that's a multi-tree. There's 3 or 4 growing out of that. He specifically called them 3 separate trees. We think that we can save one and take 2 of them out, and that one actually might prosper because it's not competing with the other 2. Right now we're on record for taking down all 3, but we'd prefer to save one. And we have a tree planting plan that shows mitigation for that, in addition to the 2 large eucalyptus trees as you first get onto the property on the left. And we want to take those down. For many reasons, obviously the fire reasons and et cetera. So I'm not sure what else that I want to address at this point. I'm happy to take any questions from you if you have any questions. We also have a colored materials board that we brought along with our materials. We're using contemporary materials, different colors of color-coded stucco. We're using a stone veneer in places, and also we're using a simulated wood product that we've used on several projects. It's very low maintenance. It's 20 years or more. It's fire resistant. It is about as real as we can, and it doesn't have some of the problems with wood because it doesn't twist and check and split and things like that. And so you don't have to come re-maintain them all the time. So and it looks pretty real. But since it's fire resistant, we're building in the WUI area. We want to be cognizant of try to be as free as possible. Not fire free, but like a 1-hour type construction. I do want to point out that we are also going to be doing water pressurization and storage tanks. That's part of this property. It's 8 to 10 psi, which is barely, a drip coming out of a faucet. So we know we've been in contact with San Jose Water. Our contractor has already been pricing out systems. We'll be putting it behind our attached garage in a little area. We don't show it on our plan at the moment because we haven't dialed it in, but we'll have a pressurization tank and a holding tank as well. And I assume that all the residents in the area have that as well. So it's just something that we will do. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you have any real technical questions, we've got the team here as well. If you have any questions on grading or landscaping or anything like that.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
So the water is going to be gravity fed into these holding tanks, and the water pressure for the house is going to be through a separate pressurized system.
What we get out of our meter is somewhere like 8 to 10 psi. Now, we're a little bit lower than the properties above us, so we may get 10 or 12 psi. Mm-hmm. But we'll take that water that'll be piped into our pumps. It'll pressurize it you've seen those blue tanks that stick up. 250 gallons or something like that will be pressurized, and there'll be holding tanks as well.
So the house pressure is totally independent of the water main pressure.
Correct. Yeah, we want to bring it up to 50 or 55 or something like that. Yeah.
Anybody else?
I have some, having the adventure of going up to see the property. I don't know what the situation is for kids going to school or walking on those roads, but it seems to me that those roads are really going to be stressed when it comes to big trucks and construction elements. So one of my first thought in looking at the property was how effective, how easily is it going to be built with all the construction elements, and how do that, and I don't know about if there's kids up there, because those trucks are going to fill up the road all by themselves when they drive up. There's not going to be any way to get around them. So I throw that out as a concern, because we have to look out for the interests of the neighbors, and I imagine this construction is going to take some time. So I put that on the table because I think that's one of my concerns at this point.
So if I can answer that, that's absolutely something that we have to be careful of. I believe that what we'll do in conjunction with the fire department requirements is that we'll provide 13-foot-6 vertical clearance throughout, and we'll have to notify all of the property owners along this private road that we, as a directive from fire, we need to trim trees up to that height, and we'll need to provide some kind of a rough clearance in the width as well. Now, we prefer to trim them under the guidance of an arborist rather than have trucks come in and break branches.
Sure.
Right? So it's in the best interest of anybody. And it's actually really smart because the fire truck department is going to be our friend for a long time. So we need to kind of work with them, and they are really asking us on all of our projects to be extra sensitive to their wishes of really making, really hitting those dimensions, and I don't know if there's any trees that are significant that would be affected by that vertical clearance requirement, but ultimately the fire department has the last say on that. Whether we build a house or not, they could come in tomorrow and, like they do, they tell you have to clear your fields and clear your defensible space. They could also come in on all these private roads throughout the county and come in and start to say, hey, you guys need to conform with our requirements. So we will be doing that at our cost, and we'll do it with care. As far as access, I think this site's, it's challenging, but nothing like some of the projects that we build on. So.
Okay.
I have a question on that note, if you're done, Ron.
Yeah, I'm fine.
What is the nature of the private road? Is this held as tenants in common by a myriad of neighbors, or is this each property line extends out to some portion of the road? What is the nature of the private road?
I'm not exactly sure. Our property covers it goes the center of the road, so a lot of it's center of the roads, and then we must have easements from Withy up to that portion, and then a shared easement with the neighbors that we share the road with at that point. And I'm hopefully someone here can answer those questions when they get their chance. But yeah, whatever it is, whether it's a mutual or shared agreement or whatever. Now my clients will be part of that, and certainly they're at the end of the road, so their pro rata is going to be the largest. So
Understood.
Luckily they are willing and able to do that.
And did I understand you correctly to say that the owners or applicants are interested in repaving that road to address or mitigate against any damages that occurred during the course of construction, as well as to meet whatever fire conditions are imposed on them?
Yeah, essentially that's what's going to happen. Okay. That road's going to be, what I would suggest is that any obvious potholes and things get handled now with some base rock or something like temporary patching. If we have to widen it for shoulders or something like that to get a large, delivery truck up there, we can do that now. But at the end of construction, before we get occupancy permits and meters, Rob's going to make sure that we, have it all dialed in. And the fire department, we're anticipating that the fire department is going to make us widen portions of that road because it's pretty narrow.
Right.
And it stretches, and so they're probably going to ask us to widen it.
Okay. One last question, I'll leave you alone. In terms of just staging, you're obviously going to have construction crews that need to park, you're going to have trucks that need to make access. It looks like there's plenty of room at the bottom of this. Is that the intention, or plan, I should say, to stage all of the construction activities on the lot itself?
I would say that 95% will be done that way. There's large areas on either side that will winterize with rubble and gravel and things like that. There's really we don't have to worry about any septic fields that we're running over, compacting. So we have a free rein temporarily to use all that space. It's sloped, but it's not too bad down there. We think that we can get the majority of the construction happening there.
Thank you.
Otherwise, we'll be down here, parking here and shuttling, which
You and Google.
we've done, right, and Google, right.
Thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
You can take a seat. And would anyone else like to comment? You have 3 minutes. Each person has 3 minutes. Yes. Just state your name and
I'm Tracy Hadid with my husband Amir Hadid from 18782 Withy Road. And mine are not about the property at all, but are actually about the easements. Because the Withy Heights, which is the road from Withy up, is an easement on our property all the way up. And the first section that he was talking about that's been resurfaced, I recently organised with all the neighbours to have resurfaced. And we actually wanted to do your section too, but there was complications with neighbours out of the country, and that's why it's in such a bad condition. But the easement, so we were asking that you recognise and record how the bottom part of the easement is and repair it afterwards, which is fine. And we're also asking that you make it in some sort of condition to go with trucks up, because our house is right next to that easement and it's just rubble. I mean, it's crumbling, that road, and it will make an incredible amount of dust and dirt, especially if you're doing it in the rainy season. And so we would ask that you do something about that. But you were saying about widening it, but the easement is only that width, and the property on the other side is ours too. You can't just decide to widen to take your trucks up. That's not possible, I think. And then we also ask that you what sort of assurances you give us, because our house is so close to that easement, which is only 10 foot wide. For our house as you're coming down, if you're going to have huge trucks going up for this large house to be built, we're worried about our home. I mean, I know they have to come up there, but what are they going to do to make sure it's safe? And then also about the parking. So it's an ingress and egress easement, is my understanding, and we also ask that they keep all their equipment and parking and everything within their property lines. You do have a large amount of property, so that should be okay. We do not have an issue with water pressure. Our house is the lowest, the first house on Withy Heights, and we're hoping that it stays that way. We're a little alarmed to hear that other people have such bad water pressure. I don't know how water pressure works and whether we'll lose ours if a big house comes or whatever. So I just wanted to make sure of that. And also, I wanted to ask about the gas pipes, PG&E, where your property's gas is coming from. Do you know that, if it's coming from the top, or is it coming up through our easement?
We can answer that for you.
So it comes up, so it's part of on an easement on ours, okay, because it's my understanding that the next house, 187890, got gas, and then it stops, the easement for PG&E stops prior to that, so I guess we need to find out about that too. But so mainly my concern is about the easement and the safety on that road, and only have assurances that they're going to take care of the road and they're going to be careful of our house, and they're not going to park trucks on Withy Heights, which would be we wouldn't be able to drive. It would be very unsafe. So those are our concerns.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So you, just backing up, you said that the easement is only 10 feet wide?
It is for the second, there's a lower portion of Withy Heights.
Okay.
And the road that he was talking about. So the
the
first
upper-
portion actually goes to 12 or 13 properties. And then the piece that goes up past our house, what you drove up to get to the site, that's 3 houses. So that's the second, most of that, not all the way up, but most of that is an easement, or a portion of it is an easement on our property. And it runs right by our house and right by our garden.
And again,
it is
that
10 foot
portion
wide.
is 10 foot
feet?
wide.
Yeah, in some places.
Fuck with that.
Yeah. It's very, now, no, there is land, a small
On the
portion
other
of our land on the other side, but that is not the easement.
Right.
That's our land.
Yeah.
So those would be my concerns about it, going up that little piece there.
Okay, we'll work something out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Would someone else like to speak?
Hi, thanks for talking to us, and thank you very much. I'm Sheila Munheit. I live at 19020 Withy Road. It's the house just behind this home that's being proposed, this new construction. And I won't spend time on the water lines. I think we spent enough time on it. I'll just, again, suggest that as of now, as far as we know, again, the wording in our title documents is very vague. There is the word easements there, but I can't make any sense out of it, and they refer back to people in 1948 and 1945. So there are easements, and as far as we can tell from visually looking at it, it appears that the water lines will be directly under where this proposed garage is being suggested. So we really seek assurances. I mean, if you could move them, great. If you can increase the water pressure, fabulous. But we definitely have to see that, and we have to know it. We can't just take, I'm sorry, but in this day and age, you can't do it on good faith. We want to know that we'll have water. And as it is, it's already an issue. And that brings up something that is not in the paperwork, but you just said that you would be building a water tank. We all have them. We have a water tank. You have a water tank in order to increase the pressure. And you said you would be putting it directly behind the proposed second garage. The main.
The attached
Okay,
one.
okay, the attached garage. Okay, because I heard that and I was just like, no. Then, huh?
That still is a problem.
Yes, it's still a problem. Well, you'll talk to that because those tend to be very noisy. Whenever we are watering what little water we allow our plants to have and our trees to have, there is a huge. Our whole house feels it because the water tank is refilling, because we have to have our own private little reservoir. So if there's another one there, we're concerned about the noise levels. Which brings me to the next issue, which is the construction of this garage is really a very big concern for us. And we've attached pictures. I don't know if you've seen them. We tried in a PowerPoint to indicate how our property would be affected by this construction, because you're talking about removing trees. We went down there, we looked at the little labels on all the trees and figured out which trees were being slated for removal. And from what we can tell and from what we can extrapolate, and I believe that's in the, no, it's in this picture that we have. You can see that the removal of those trees will radically change our view from our living room, because we'll be seeing parts of this garage directly, and we'll also be hearing it. The trees also provide a sound barrier as well as a visual barrier, and we'll have direct access. So from our living room windows, we'll be able to see from standing on our deck. We tried it and tried to imagine it without the trees, and we marked the trees. We'll be able to see directly down the entire driveway, and also we'll be hearing all the traffic. Of course, you own the property, you do what you want, but we respectfully request that something be done about the maintenance of these trees, because it's going to severely impact the value of our property. The first thing you said is that what was so appealing about this property and why you paid so much for it, even though it was a tear down, was because of the view. Well, yeah, we feel the same way. So please, please, respect our view and our property value as a part of that. And the second, okay, so I'm very relieved to hear that the balcony's been addressed, because our concern, if you look at our pictures with the arrows, that balcony, I mean, yes, it does look like a very big cluster of trees, but it's not that big when you go up there. And you're all invited. Come over, I'll give you wine. And I will whine about this. So if those trees, right now they partially obscure, but the house is going up. I mean, maybe they've lowered the front of it, but they are proposing the second story that will go up to now where the height of the chimney is. And from what we can see those little orange things waving between the trees. And if there would be a balcony there, and if, it'll be at the same level as some of those trees, they will be able to see directly into our swimming pool and into our bedroom.
Okay, but there's not going to be a...
Well, there's not going to be a balcony, so yes, hopefully, and I'm sure, look, you don't want to see us as much as we don't want to be seen, so those, so really, it's this second garage construction that has us very, very concerned, both for the water and also for the aesthetic appeal and how it will impact the value of our property.
Thank you.
I think that's pretty much sums it up. And then I also did address the roads and everything, but that's been addressed. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Carl Sprick. I am at 19010 Withy Road, and we have parcels 37 and 38 just right next to the property of theirs, and just uphill from your property diagonally. Pretty much the issues have been covered. I wanted to ask you a question. You mentioned, or did I hear you right, that water tank would be 250 gallons? Possible. That is nothing.
That's just
the pressure tank.
The
Oh, the pressure. Oh, not the storage tank. Okay. How big would the storage tank be?
They're typically 5,000 to 10,000 gallons.
Good. Good. I was thinking that the storage tank would.
They run through 250 pretty quick.
Yeah, it certainly would. Yes. Okay. And where would this be located?
I can answer that when I have my chance to speak.
Yeah.
Unless you guys allow me to talk back, but I don't know if you want to get into it.
Well, that's all right.
Maybe not. Maybe we'll,
I would.
yeah.
Yeah, I think best hold to answer
Because of the
those
noise
questions
issue,
after.
maybe you could consider locating it inside the detached garage. Part of that building. I know from experience too that these things are noisy. I've tried to cover our tank, our pressure pump, in such a manner that it is not disturbing to the neighbors. The water line has been covered pretty well, I think so. The water pressure, I cannot account for the fact that over the past 50 years it's gone down and down and down as construction has increased. I really don't know why. We have been required to have some backflow valves in ours. Maybe that's part of it. But I hope that this problem can be solved. I hope that it will not be impacted by the new building, and that's all we're concerned with right now. I would like to mention, in addition, that the fences are not something that are shown in this plan. There are too many neighbors, in my opinion, who put perimeter fences around their entire acreage. I am totally against that for the reasons I have stated in here. And one of the most important reasons not to permit that, although Monte Sereno does not have anything forbidding fences, it should not be permitted because in our present fire danger situation, we need an escape routes, plural. And that goes both ways, from their property through ours uphill and vice versa. So I would like to mention this and emphasize the issue of fences, that perhaps this should be written into any permissions given that this should not be allowed. Construction damage has been covered. I would comment, of course, as one of the neighbors who has to look at this house, it is humongous and certainly is bulky and is shielded from us only by one layer of trees. I don't know if the design would permit the house to be sunk into the hillside that is dropped by a few feet, so that it would be a less imposing structure, but I would like to suggest that. The color is not mentioned. That is something to be done later, but it would be nice if the color would blend in. There are with, oh, is it there? Mm-hmm. Would the north side of the building, the end, would it have this brown color?
We can pass that. Can you pass that around?
Yeah.
In the interest of time,
I think
And
when
protocol.
the applicant comes back up, he can address all of those. The only reason I'm pulling you back up to the mic is because this is not just amplifying sound, but it's actually recording. So we need to get all the conversation on the recording. Thank you.
Okay. Then I have one more point, and that is the road. The widening of the road, there is a problem at the fork, because if the road is widened, obviously it is going to be much too close to the Hadid's place. But if it is widened in the other direction, it's going to be almost right on top of the right fork, which is the fork we use, not for the construction. But so something would have to be done to strengthen the retaining wall there if the road is widened in that direction. I think this is all that I have to say at the moment. Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to speak?
My wife already did.
Okay.
I'm Apo Sezginer. I live in 19020. I'm married to Sheila Monheit, who just spoke. I would like to request that this second garage, detached garage, not be placed there. Move it a little bit. I would like none of the trees be cut. Otherwise, we'll have a very direct view. Our houses are already so close, and it's moving closer now. We don't have a view of the valley. When we look towards the valley, we see a wall of trees, and I love it just that way. The proposal removes those trees, and then we look at the second garage, and we look at the road coming up to this new house. That's what will happen. When those trees are removed, we'll have a view of this house and that second garage. I would strongly request those trees not be cut. Secondly, we have our bedroom very close to this house and the bathroom. When I use that toilet, I am aware that they are hearing me. I have been embarrassed. The people who live there, I'm sure, are hearing me because when I'm on the toilet, I'm hearing everything they say. So that part of the house is moving closer, and that's a very unfortunate choice. Also, it's going up. I am not concerned about a view of the valley. I'm concerned about not seeing this house. And the changes in the architecture is unfortunately making this house closer to us and go up. And again, I would like to reiterate the issue. If that pump is put behind the garage, behind the attached garage, it's going to be very close to our bedroom and the bathroom I mentioned. So we'll be hearing that pump at night. So, and also, I regret the architectural direction of Monte Sereno, the direction it's taking. We loved Monte Sereno when we moved here because it was rustic houses, falling down barns and things like that. Now they have all become mega mansions and it's turning into a inner city feel where one wall is against the other wall. So I very much regret the architectural direction of the city.
That's not really a topic for right now. We're just discussing this one particular property. But thank you.
But this is part of it.
Thank you.
Can I ask him a couple questions? So when you're referring to the second garage, you're referring to the attached garage, right?
The detached.
Detached garage.
The detached garage.
The
down
trees
the
are
middle.
being cut to accommodate the detached garage.
Gotcha.
Please move the detached garage a little bit so
Gotcha.
you don't have to cut the trees.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Would the applicant like to come discuss what was just brought up?
I will do my best to try to answer some of these questions. I will take them in order that they were given. We were under the impression that we had a 20-foot wide legal easement all the way up. We've just pulled it up online and said there is indeed not only the pavement's 10 feet, but the easement itself is 10 feet for a certain stretch of road. This is kind of the hands, the card we've been dealt. So we're going to use all of that 10 feet as best we can. And hopefully the fire department will be okay with that. And we'll have to deal with that as we get to fire. There are other mitigating measures we can do to augment deficiencies, if you will. If the road is not as wide, we can put extra tanks in, or we can build more fire restrictive construction, things like that. So I think from that standpoint, I think it's okay. I do share the concern with all of the neighbors that the road is in bad shape and it is narrow. So we're just going to work with that as best we can. The noise of the tanks are similar to the pressure tanks we're talking about. They do go off quite a bit. They're a lot like a swimming pool pump, and we put those in vaults all the time. We concrete walls, concrete lids. We have a retaining wall around behind the house, if you go to what would be the north, I suppose, or the west, behind the attached garage and the house proper, we have a retaining wall. I just talked to David. We think we can create a vault into the hillside, and that should mitigate 98% of the sound, probably better than it would be if it was inside a wood structure like a garage. So that's what we would do. Certainly, we like the feedback because the last thing my clients want to hear is the pump running, right? So that's really great to know. Normally, we're putting these far away from buildings and people. And again, the balcony, as Jeannie said, we're eliminating it. We did it because we didn't think that counted as a second floor, and we had this opportunity. It's not a big deal at all. It was something that, as architects, we wanted to do. The clients don't need it or request it, and so hopefully the neighbors feel like their privacy is not being impacted by that. And actually, they're looking down on us. So that it's almost like they have more of a angle than on us than we do on them. And so certainly we have to be concerned about window placement now and shading and screening. And the idea of, I want to address fencing real quick. I really don't want to agree to any kind of conditions that would preclude my clients or any future clients from the notion of perimeter fencing But I will state this, Shannon and Dan do not plan on doing perimeter fencing. The idea of fencing this property would be expensive and almost like trying to do a border wall. There's almost impossible, okay? We will come up with ways to fence off the pool and the house in a way that works for everybody. And that should, you can take my word for it, but if it's up to you guys how you want to handle that. Right now, as Carl mentioned, the city does not prohibit perimeter fencing, but we didn't put it on the plan because we were undecided exactly where we wanted to put it. And we will work within the ordinances to make it compliant. The idea of lowering the house any further would be detrimental to the quality of life on this project. It would also create more cut that we don't want to do for several reasons, but we feel that we're really not adding too much to the height of the existing house. And I think, again, the story poles show a lot. You can see that the second story roof is 5-6 feet above the existing home. So we're not changing things that dramatically. And the road is in the exact same location it is now. And if we remove a couple these are small oak trees. If you look at the site plan, these are 8-inch and smaller. There's like 6-inch, I think, diameter, 3 6-inch diameter oak trees. Yes, they do have canopies. We can easily replace some of these trees, and the other trees will fill in that gap. And so that would be our plan as well, to provide privacy screening. There are a few holes along that back property line, that holes in the landscaping that we will fill in to create a green fence, because we're not going to do a fence back there anyway. So that will help. And I think that we've done a really good job to create a rather large house that's non-obtrusive, that really is not visible from any platform except for maybe the neighbor down below as a whole. The neighbors that have spoke tonight are all above and behind and adjacent to us. And so, again, if you look at the story pole impact on their views, we don't feel like they're impacting their views dramatically. There's always going to be some impacts, as you guys know every day. You have to deal with that. We just think we have minimized them to what should be acceptable. That's my personal opinion. And I'm pretty proud of this house. I think it's a tight. We have a lot of things we had to achieve on this house for the clients, and I think we've done a really good job. So I would be happy to answer any more questions if I've raised any, or
I have one question for you. The deck about which Jeannie spoke that apparently will not be a serviceable deck, is that my understanding, the one that's on the back there?
Yeah, they can't access it, and I condition that it be treated as though it were a roof. So it's
The whole
roofing
thing?
material.
The whole thing?
No, there is a portion that can.
Just
be
right in here?
That square area that's
Right.
40
Okay.
feet and
That's
beyond.
40
yeah.
feet back.
Okay. It looks like 40 feet comes not quite to the house, but almost. So there's not much room for deck along the house. It's just
Okay.
that slider off the master there. Okay.
Well, that answers my question. So if some portion of that deck can be used, then it's appropriate to have a slider there, but if not, we would ask. Okay.
yeah, there'll be windows there, actually, which we changed the plan already. Jeannie asked us the other day. And we did not like the idea of having a small balcony there. The railings don't quite fit architecturally, half on, half off the garage and stuff. So we're just going to kill it. We're just putting windows there.
Oh, in its entirety.
Altogether. It's gone.
Great.
Yeah.
That solves the
Yeah,
problem.
sorry, I thought I made myself clear there earlier. Yeah, it's
No,
86.
That's fine. We didn't ask you the right question. And then, Jeannie, maybe you can help us understand if they're talking about creating a concrete tomb, for lack of a better word, to put these
Vault.
these vaults. Yeah, that sounds a little better, isn't it?
Wine cave?
Jen's classes, and I'm talking about tombs. That's just not a good night for me. But if we create these, can these vaults be constructed within the setback?
I would recommend it stay within the 30 feet, the single story.
That's easily handleable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's,
Right? That's it.
I don't want to get into noise measurements or anything like that, so. if it's treated like the first floor setback, I think you should be able to manage that,
Okay.
correct?
If I could direct you to the page A2 in your packet. In the lower left corner, you'll see a site, it's called site retaining wall that comes off the garage and it has an elbow to it. That's the section that we're talking about burying this vault and putting it there.
Wait,
So
I can't even
all the sound will be
You know
isolated
what
and
a
reflected
vault,
towards
it's
the
going to be in a
house.
concrete vault,
Concrete vault.
so better than in the garage, because the garage won't have the same attenuation,
So-
sound attenuation as well.
I think it's over here is what he's talking right here.
I wonder. Thank you.
Right here.
So,
Yeah, that's the same plan.
Do you have the overhead that we can use?
So I'm seeing it,
Can we-
I think he's talking
no?
about right here.
Yeah, right.
right, wait, I can't see
Sorry.
because he's
My
holding
fingers.
his up.
Put yours down.
Oh,
So
sorry.
yours,
See where that lettering is?
there, yeah.
Gary, you're talking about back here
Okay.
in this corner, right?
Got it.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
right
right
there.
here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Off of this wall.
Correct.
Oh, outside.
And this is just a small little concrete enclosure just to bury the pump in.
Like we would with pool.
Okay.
Okay.
Which we'll also do with our pool equipment, because that's noisy as well, yeah.
Do you have a holding tank plan on the property?
It's not shown on the plans, but yes, we will definitely do holding tanks, as David alluded to.
Where will they be?
They will probably be located at the highest point to take advantage of gravity within, not in the setback, but out of that setback. I think by code, we're allowed to go within 10 feet of a property line for water tanks. But we'll have to look at the exact location. It costs more money to put them up on a higher hill, et cetera. So, but that's also for firefighting as well, for sprinklers and,
Be above ground, the tank?
yes, they'll be above ground.
Yeah, with the
How,
sprinkler system.
how big are those things?
The 2,500 gallon tank is about
8
this
foot
tall and maybe as large as 8 or 9 feet in diameter, 10 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
That's a 5,000 gallon tank. Okay, we'll probably need 2 of those.
And you,
5,000 gallons?
And we screen them, and they're dark green or black. And
So when you say around the highest part of the property, are you looking at by the a detached garage or on the other side?
it's because of the large oak tree, number 945, we're really restricted with the location of this detached garage. And additionally, the driveway approach and the existing garage, the attached garage. So all of this is kind of shoehorned in. So we really, I have to say, we've worked and worked and worked on positioning the house and this detached garage quite a bit. And that's, my team is here to attest to that. We have several trees to the south property line above the house, which also pose challenges to do any kind of grading and pads for water tanks. So as much as we like to get them, 100 feet above the house, that's not an option. So we're going to have to place those strategically that are screened from all parties, not only from the neighbors, but from us, and to get them as high as possible. Now, they may only be at the same height as the pressurized tank.
But the pressurized tank is going to really accommodate the pressure for the house.
That's correct.
So the tank could be just about anywhere, as long as it can.
No, it can't be below the house. It has to be at the level of the house or above the house. Yeah.
or you need another pump to pump.
Or you
it
need
up
another
as well.
pump. That's right.
Noisier, yeah.
Is there any, we had a big 5,000 gallon tank in Scott. At the fire department, in the case of a fire, we had a fire a hookup for fire hose for the fire department, so that they had access to that 5,000 gallons
Yeah,
of
it's
water.
pretty,
That's right.
pretty typical.
They have wharf hydrant fittings for that. And we also have a pool that they could also draw from as well. Yeah.
Jeannie, does the placement of the tanks, is that supposed to be on the plans, or is that something that we don't?
No, that's not necessarily your purview per se. Again, I think kind of keeping them, they've got a tree canopy, so they're going to want to stay out of that, or the trees too. So, you're probably looking at that back area that's,
And we'll probably end up cutting some, maybe look and do a short retaining wall and a little bit of fill. These things are usually contained with a steel ring and gravel. You have to do seismic anchoring of these. You don't want them to bounce around in an earthquake. So we have to create level pads for these, and so we're not going to do a lot of fill. We're going to do more cut, and so for Carl and Heidi, it won't be as much of a view distraction. Like I say, they're about this tall. So I'm sure you've seen them, if nothing else, on semis riding down the freeway or something. But yeah, they're becoming more and more common because we need more. The water pressure is not so good in the hills.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes. Okay, Gary, you can sit down. Can he come back up, or is that?
it's up to you, yeah.
It's
Okay,
up to you.
but this
We're
time
fine.
I'm going to
Yes.
stick you, I'm going to hold you to 3 minutes. I'm starting the clock right now.
Where is this water
Ask the
tank?
question into the,
Where are the storage tanks going to be, and where is the pressure pump tank going to be located?
Okay, so right here in where this retaining wall is, we're talking about creating more retaining walls to create a vault. This would be completely concrete walls and a concrete lid with a door right here that'll have the pressure tank.
Oh, boy.
You
Right.
won't hear a thing. Why would you hear anything? It's completely concrete.
If it's completely concrete.
Completely concrete. The noise is going to go this way.
You said there wasn't any inside noise coming out of there.
Well, if any noise comes out, it's going to come through the door because you have to
Okay.
put an access door. It's going to come towards their home or it's going to go down the hill that way.
And where are the storage tanks?
Well, the storage tanks we haven't fully figured out, but you see all these oak trees and pine trees. So we're talking about putting them over here somewhere.
boy.
That's about only the place we can put them. I don't know where you guys have your tanks, but do you see this oak tree? This is a protected oak tree that we can't do anything underneath. So,
That I would certainly find objectionable to have to look at those things. If
as
you
I
buried
said,
them.
we'll semi-bury them, so they may be, from your vantage point, maybe this tall. But if we do 3 or 4 feet of cut, mitigate 50% of the height, right? So, I mean, there's more planting that will block that.
Well, since you have.
We've met with Carl, and he has a view kind of like down a little corridor adjacent to our house, and he requested from the get-go if we could keep the house from moving to the west to preserve some of his views. And as it turns out, we were able to meet that request. And so we're still trying to work with, we're out of the 2-story setback with our 1-story house. So we're
Okay,
actually,
and I think at this point, since this is out of our jurisdiction anyway, this is something that you guys can do on your own.
Okay.
I don't think that needs,
Go ahead.
I don't think we need to take storage tanks any further in the meeting. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any comments?
close the public
Oh, I will close the public hearing. She's so much more. Oh,
I have a quick question.
can you come up to the microphone and state your name, please?
Amir Hadid, 18782. I had a question. What happens after this meeting?
It depends on it depends on
I'll
our
go
decision.
through all of that afterwards. I'll describe the procedural aspects once the commission has taken an action.
Okay.
I'll then explain on the record for the benefit of the
How do you
public
communicate this to us?
verbally.
Are we going to come back
Literally.
to another meeting?
No. Literally, when they're done with their
Oh,
discussion
today?
and taking action, I will explain it to you on the record.
Okay, I'm going to get a beer then.
Okay.
Okay, do any commissioners have questions, comments?
I think that we would raise a lot of issues about the water lines, and about the easements, screening tanks, and about the roads. So my question to ourselves is, what jurisdiction
Do we have?
we have to propose something with some callbacks that what can we talk about there? Because I think that's probably the next thing we got to talk about.
The one thing that I was wondering about was that Gary said that he has a letter of intent from San Jose Water, but I don't know, there's no timetable for moving the water lines, and I would hesitate to approve anything before.
That's not our.
Well, clearly, if there's a water line that basically transects this project, they're not going to be able to build it. So until they remedy that issue with that public utility that's coming across their private property, they're really on hold.
So we don't even have to think of that as a condition?
I mean, you're just taking an action on a development proposal. Whether they can get a building permit, we're going to have to, at that stage, we're going to have to see that they're out of all easements. They're out of the proposed construction is not encroaching on any easements. So, and I don't know if they have presented me with a preliminary of what San Jose Water is proposing to do, and it would
Well, that's, I just
go
didn't know if it
outside
was
of-
an open-ended thing, if it was even, okay, but we're not doing that. Okay, I see questions, I see issues of being tree removal, and I wonder if there could be the neighbors that could plant something, the neighbors affected could plant something, I think.
Is there any tree mitigation in this area here? I don't see anything.
Not where these trees are going to be removed at the detached garage.
Yeah, I was looking at the trees. I see only one tree that really has to be removed. That's 8-inch. The other two uphill seem like they were close enough to bother removing.
Are you talking like 945?
946.
948 and the little 951, 52, 53 appear to be well outside the garage footprint. It's just that one 946 that kind of nicks the corner there. And I tried to visualize what it would be like without that one tree, and it didn't seem to be too big of an impact. There's so many other trees in that area.
So do we want to begin by saying if it goes further, they can't take out those trees? I'm just trying to find a place to work backwards.
Yeah. Jeannie, can we say that they only remove that one tree that interferes with the corner of the garage and the other ones stay?
Yes, you can.
I mean, I'm no
trying to see
arborist,
if
but I
the
looked
size
at
of
them and
that
I'm like,
garage,
I didn't see why they
there's
had to
no
go,
leeway.
to be honest.
It'd be nice to ask a question to Gary. Just was that the tree you were talking about? You were talking about because I might put it in my notes here. You talked about there was some trees that you were considering saving.
That's that triplet oak.
The triple trunk or multi.
If I may speak on the record, 946 is probably in direct conflict of the retaining wall for the garage. 948 is in conflict of the retaining wall for the garage. So those two trees.
Oh, the footing?
Of the footing, yeah, and the cut, the overcut.
Can't the footing be done like with an L footing
But you
or
have
something?
overcut because you have to get OSHA cuts and all that stuff. So
I see, yeah.
if
Gotcha.
What we do sometimes is that we don't take the trees down, even though we'll go on record and to get them approved to be removed, and that we also agreed to plant more trees. Sometimes we'll actually go ahead and, if construction allows, we'll keep the trees, and if they die, then we take them out. We've already got it covered. But if they live, I've seen oak trees that all the arborists in the valley have said these trees are going to die, and we refuse to cut them down, and they're still living. So, you know, they're only guessing as much as anybody else. But the tree clump 951, 52, and 53, there's a couple volunteers there, so it actually helps the tree to towards the, I don't know, direction that is, west, to save one of those of the three. The other two are pretty small.
Would it be possible to ask to have a replacement tree put in that area if indeed you have to take out 948 and
Absolutely.
946?
We could easily replant in that exact area, close to that exact area.
After
with
construction.
after construction
Construction,
with
if it
smaller
dies,
trees,
and what? Yeah.
which could then reroute around new foundations. The trick is existing trees have, you know, had their way, and then all of a sudden you cut them. Now it is on the downhill, so it's not as sensitive as the uphill. So there is a chance that these trees could survive, but I wouldn't want to go on record that they are, and they're probably not, don't have a great likelihood of surviving.
That's replace 948,
946.
946, correct? Yep.
And I don't know if,
At their, with working with staff on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, or if you have, again, you know, you have this garage designed at 22 by 22, whether or not you have a foot leeway either, and pushing it forward at all to deal with the 946 one, I don't know. So again, I don't
think he's going to have enough room for the turnaround if you.
Yeah, then it
For the car
doesn't.
turnaround?
And this is barely 20 by 20 on the inside to make
Okay.
a two-car garage. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 946 and 948 to be replaced.
in similar
Locations
location.
after construction.
Moving on.
This is really at the point of discussion for them, and then it makes it a lot easier for the commission to have their discussion because they've heard all of the input. And so I think we need to let them have their discussion, and then once they've done that and perhaps taken an action, I'll then help you all understand what you may or may not want to do with that, okay?
Okay, I think one thing that we haven't discussed is the design of the home. We've been caught up in the minutia of water lines. I mean, we've all seen the materials board.
I found that I was pleasantly surprised when I drove up there that it wasn't that tall. And I think the design, it's a super difficult lot to build on. I think that there's been a great deal of effort with Gary and his team to get it to work with the site, and I think it's respectful of the neighbors and all the restrictions within what they're allowed to build on that property.
I would agree. I mean, they're cutting down almost 4 feet, it appears, in some of these civil cross-sections.
Yeah.
That it's really going to mitigate impact for the uphill neighbor. The roof line is, I mean, I tried, you know, I went up on the neighbor's house. I didn't go on their deck or anything, but I kind of poked my head up in there and tried to visualize what I would see, and it didn't appear that I would see it.
Yeah.
And the roof line is well below the tops of those trees, so I just don't see it as being superimposing on the uphill neighbor, especially since that entire balcony has been removed, so there's not going to be a bunch of people hanging out up there with a barbecue or anything.
Exactly.
So
That was my only reservation, was that
Yeah,
balcony from that backside, that
yeah,
back.
so all you have are a couple bedroom windows and a bathroom window, basically, on that side up there.
So none of us have any issue with the architecture portion?
It's a nice design.
I think it's beautiful.
Or water tanks and trees?
Water tanks and trees, yeah.
And relative to the roads, because they're private, do we have any jurisdiction in relationship to that?
Well, we can, again, with the applicant indicating, their willingness to, manage their construction. We have included on previous proposals the need to be cognizant of that and document. And then that needs to be turned over to the city so that if there's any damage that's expressed by the others that are party to that private road, we have something to go by. I've also explained to the residents who are party to that roadway easement or whatever, they need to also to take their own documentation too, because in order for the city to enforce the need for the applicant to really take responsibility for any damage, if at all, is done through the construction process, we need that documentation for us to be able to enforce. Otherwise, it's really the city kind of stepping in and helping to manage this private thing. But if we're presented with the information, we can help to enforce that. And there's typically a real willingness on applicants' parts when they're in the hillsides, because they do need to be on that property. There is no place to park elsewhere on the private drives or roads, and it's also just a matter of convenience. They don't want to be going up and down a hill to have all of their stuff. So
I think the reality is there's going to be wear and tear on the road. That's just a given. It's just a construction project, but it sounds like they're going to do everything they can to leave it in better shape and more accessible, which after hearing some of the stories of, the fires in Paradise, people trying to get out of these areas, it's frightening, and anything to increase access to get out would, I think, only benefit everybody using that road.
So just as a side note, I know there's been some emails going back and forth. The city council is going to really work on fire prevention in our town. There's been a big, since the Paradise Fire, thinking that this could clearly happen to us. So on your little street in your area, we would be prime. First is evacuation, and then figure out the other issues that you can do to mitigate fire and have a plan up there, because you guys are locked in.
yeah, you might you might want to listen to the council meeting from last night. The city manager brought it up at the end of the meeting, really working with the county fire and other ways to really hook neighbors up with each other and working as kind of blocks, neighborhood blocks and units to help each other. And it's also, I think, through county fire. So I would bring up last night's council meeting, and you can hear their discussion, what she says. So.
May I just add, this is why
Okay, right, thank you. Does someone want to make a motion on this? Oh, you have something else?
No, I'm ready to make the motion.
You go.
All right, I would move that we approve with 4 mitigating factors. The first being that trees 946 and 948 be replaced post-construction if they cannot be preserved during the course of construction to afford screening to neighbors and a sound buffer. The second condition being that any storage facilities for pressurization systems or storage tanks be located in such a way that they do not create any sort of sound issues to neighbors.
So in a concrete vault.
concrete vault or
Yeah.
whatever the
Whatever they wanna
circumstances,
do.
but mitigate against sound. The third condition being, and from what we've heard, this doesn't seem to be any issue, that the applicant address any damages to the roads used during the course of construction at the conclusion of the project. And then the final condition be that all the staging occur on site to the extent possible, so that the damage to the roads and egress and ingress issues don't arise during the course of construction.
I second it. That was beautifully said.
Just one more thing, do we need to put, since we saw it with the deck on it, do we need to say, and taking the deck off?
Yeah, I'd include that only because I told them not to
Okay,
modify
Yeah.
the plans, but we'd condition the debt.
okay, we condition with the,
That would be the fifth, yeah, because I think that's important.
those are the 5 I have.
Okay, I re-second it.
Resecond.
All those in favor?
Aye. Good luck
That
with
was
the
all
project.
ayes.
Look at your project, guys.
Okay, so let me, for the benefit of the audience, explain to you what the process is. So the Site and Architectural Commission, through their action, recommended, approved the project, conditioned in those 5 manners that they articulated. I'll put all of that in a memorandum of decision that'll get mailed out to the applicant, property owner and applicant on Friday. There's a 10-day appeal period, which typically goes to the following Monday, not the next Monday, but the following Monday at 5. So that's an opportunity for anybody within proximity of the site, if they're not in agreement with that action, they can appeal it. It would go to City Council, and the same project would be presented to City Council. The City Council would then hear the project, and I'll use a fancy term, de novo, which means it's a brand-new hearing, and the same process will occur. Once, should this project get appealed, and the council becomes a decision-making body, whatever their decision is final. And then any action after that fact would have to be taken in the courts. So, any questions on that?
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody that came.
Thank you.
They're very helpful input.
Thank you.
So you guys have to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Hand off.
that's
do,
right, that's
um,
right. See, I was hoping we could do that without, I was hoping to keep the gavel.
So what the
Yeah, it's
commission needs to do
PowerPoint.
is
Nominate,
a new chair for the
chair.
following year. And did you guys do a vice chair?
we didn't do a vice chair,
Yeah, I
but
think
we can
last
do a
year we
vice
did.
chair.
Should do a vice chair in
Should
case
do a
someone's
vice
not
chair.
here.
Yeah.
We've always
Thank
done
you.
it kind of in, we can do it differently, but it's always been kind of next in line, right? Who's next in line? You, Steve? I think it's you.
Is it me or Ron or one of us, right?
It's one, or you guys came the same time.
We did, yeah.
You guys could Rochambeau for it.
Wait, you guys got reappointed, so no worries? Yeah?
Yeah, no.
No?
Well, we did. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I didn't know, yeah.
I didn't
Okay,
know.
yeah.
Great. Oh,
How about chair, vice chair, and then next
Call me
time it's you're
on
the,
Monday,
then you're
and
the
we'll
chair.
have that decision. You can get a copy.
Steve would be the chair.
Steven's gonna be the chair.
Steve, you want to be the chair?
that's fine. And then we can
Vice
flip
chair?
next year, whatever.
I nominate,
Vice chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, next year.
I nominate Steve as
Usually
chair
just pictures is better. Yeah.
and Ron, yeah. and
Ron is vice chair. I second it.
So,
All those in favor?
Aye.
sorry.
Okay, so Steve is chair and Ron is vice chair.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Guys campaigned very hard.
Yeah.
You made some great points.
And I am adjourning the meeting.
And you were trying to
Excellent.
keep that gavel.
I know, I wanted the gavel. I was just finally getting it.
I know, that's the
I'll look
problem.
back when I finish destroyed it. Sorry.
That was well done, your motion to
I
just
have old
nail it down on those
envelopes.
points.
No, yeah, that was, a lawyer could not have done
Yeah,
that. I mean, that was just what it took for that one.
Words.
Totally helpful.
Steve will.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
really helpful.
Give it to the